Thor Love and Thunder is hitting theaters this week, and man, this is a big film that many people are excited for. You got Thor coming back, you got Mighty Thor, Natalie Portman's back, Christian Bale's playing the villain, you got Valkyrie, you got Korg, and probably a lot more surprises because it is an MCU movie. And this movie is not just awesome, this is one of my favorite MCU films in quite a while, and I'm so excited to give my reasons why this movie is all of that and more. Of course, without spoilers, so you are safe here. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today we're discussing Thor Love and Thunder. Thor has to enlist the help of Valkyrie, Korg, and his ex-girlfriend Jane Foster, who is now a Thor herself, to fight off Gor the God Butcher, who intends to make the gods extinct. Directed and written by Taika Waititi, and again starring the likes of Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tessa, Christian Bale, Taika Waititi, and even Russell Crowe. Now this is Thor Love and Thunder. Lots of excitement over this one because it's one of the big main characters from all of the first three phases finally getting his next big film and our next big adventure for him. And a lot of Phase 4 has been, when it comes down to returning characters, what is going on with their lives post-Endgame. And as well as a lot of newer characters and explaining, well, what's been going on with them post-Endgame and also maybe even before that. And for me, this is the one movie that I've been actually really excited for, mostly for the fact that Taika Waititi is directing and writing this. He did Jojo Rabbit, which absolutely just took my heart by storm and showed that you can mix comedy and drama in a really unique way. And he did it within that movie, and he showcases in here why he is able to do that once again. And flat out, I loved Thor Love and Thunder to so many reasons, and I'm really excited to talk about this. And I know not everyone is going to love this as much as I did. I totally understand if you like Thor Ragnarok more, and I think there's going to be that debate out there of what is better. That's the first question everyone's going to want to know is, what is better, Thor Ragnarok or Thor Love and Thunder? For me, I prefer this movie 10 times fold for a lot of different reasons, and I'm really excited to talk about all of those. Just make sure, guys, if you guys are new here, why don't you hit that like and subscribe button, because I have a lot of cool MCU videos coming up this week. MCU ranking of all the movies, including Thor Love and Thunder. A villain ranking coming up pretty soon. That's going to be cool, because now we get to add Gor the God Butcher to there. And if you have any other ideas, well, let me know down below in the comment section, as well as just your thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder. Let's talk about it down there. So starting with my pros, let's get some of the housekeeping stuff out of the way before I really dive into the performances of this entire film and the directing and writing. Yes, there are two post-credit scenes. One is absolutely awesome. It's going to get a lot of Thor fans excited. And as well, jumping into the second one's also really cool. There's about two, one in the middle, one all the way at the end. Definitely stay tuned for those. And in general, jumping into Thor Love and Thunder, what is my background with the Thor character to this date? First Thor movie, I find to be pretty cool. I like it. I think there's a lot of cool stuff that Kenneth Branagh does in that film, and I really love the look of Asgard in there. Then you have Thor the Dark World, which is arguably the worst MCU film, and it's not even really that bad. It's just very bland. But when you come down to Thor Ragnarok, this is where a lot of people seem to be split. Either you love this movie, or you could care less about it. For me, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think it is one of the funniest MCU films ever. But it's not a movie I go back to too often. I think there's a lot of emotion missing in that film, sadly. And I wish I could love it more like everyone else does. Lately, I have actually been getting more into the Thor comics because my friend Ren Geekness let me know how fantastic this run specifically is with Mighty Thor, with Gor the God Butcher, everything from Jason Aaron. And I got sucked into the Thor comics so much and really came to appreciate them to such a high standard, because in a way, it very much feels like Lord of the Rings mixed with Star Wars and all these different elements coming together. So seeing that Taika was probably going to be adapting all of that, that's exciting to me. And jumping right into the film, seeing the trailers do not disappoint exactly what you are getting from this film. This is a film that is, in a way, a romantic comedy, but in other ways, it's a film about what is our purpose going forward in life. And if we think our purpose is this, well, what happens if it's not? And those elements that Taika Waititi was able to sprinkle throughout this film was very poignant and heartbreaking and also just very emotional. And this is something that Taika Waititi has been very much able to do over the course of his career when it comes down to films. I mentioned Jojo Rabbit specifically because that is a movie that really much balances comedy and drama perfectly. At one point, you're laughing hysterically, and then this giant twist happens, and it breaks your damn heart. And Thor Love and Thunder has moments like that, to where you come to care even about Gor the God Butcher. And the way that they are able to develop this character to such a high standard was something that I was thoroughly impressed with, because let's just jump right into Gor. Christian Bale probably becomes and gives one of my favorite MCU performances ever. Now, Christian Bale is one of the best actors, so you understandably know that's going to happen. But the material that Taika gave him is only enhanced by this performance. And Gor, for me, reading about him in the comics, was one of the coolest characters that I have been introduced to in a while. And the movie, while a unique and different interpretation of him, still contains a lot of that, and it worked wonders. I love Gor in here. And again, this is not spoiler, so I'm not going to dive too deep into his character, but I really love what they were able to do. There's this Pennywise kind of cheesy, weird, and creepy vibe to him every single time you get an interaction with him. And you only get a glimpse of that in the trailer, but they really make him creepy in here. And a badass per se. I love how they were able to infuse all of the elements, the mythology of his character, specifically with that sword. And if you've read the comics, you know there's certain things with that sword. Now, they don't go fully in on it like the comics do, because there might be certain things that they don't have the rights to. But what they used it for and how they used it, the introduction of all of that, is fantastic. And Gor's introduction in this story might be one of my favorites that I've ever seen in an MCU film for a villain. Of course, Gor is not the main character in here. We have two other Thors this time around, one played by Chris Hemsworth and one played by Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman, yes, is back as Jane Foster. Now, I will not get into how she becomes Thor, but I've never been the biggest fan of the Mighty Thor character, especially since I'd only read up on her team-ups. Reading a little bit more of the comics, I started to come to more of an appreciation about Mighty Thor, and seeing how Taika was actually able to use her in here was a great parallel between Chris Hemsworth and her. And this is not the same Jane Foster that you knew before. It seems like she has grown, aged, and really much added a new dynamic to this character that's a little bit more mature than the last time we had watched her. And for me, this is the first time that I've ever cared about their relationship. It goes to show that with a great director and with fabulous writing, you can bring together chemistry between two characters that have never had chemistry with one another. And you see everything of their love story, from what had happened to them in between Thor Ragnarok to everything that had happened now. And everything that goes forward into this, in a sense, will take you back to one of your past relationships that maybe you rekindled, or a fight that you had with your significant other that you are glad that you were able to get past and move along, because there is more important things to be held. And their love is something that you truly start to believe in, not trying to be cheesy at all, but the romantic comedy elements really work there. In fact, there are two scenes in particular where the film finally takes its time to slow down and really give that development and just have like some minor moments of dialogue. And these two moments, one in the middle of the film and one at the very end of the film. And both of these moments are my favorite parts of the entire film. They're not flashy, they're not action set pieces, but it's just those little moments of when they're talking that it adds a lot to this entire story and why you should care. And again, Natalie Portman is absolutely phenomenal in here. She's trying to find her place in this world. That is the whole point of this film, is finding your place. What is your purpose? And her finding her place in this world as this new Thor isn't just badass, but it's really hilarious and funny, because she's trying to come up with her own catchphrases at one point. And, you know, these are elements that are really cool to see in how they are able to interact with it all. And where they leave this character, I thought was perfect. I thought was perfect beyond belief, and I am so happy with the way Taika was able to write this all around. Chris Hemsworth, again, is just phenomenal as Thor. He's hilarious, he's badass, and again, like where I loved when Natalie Portman's character went, I ended up loving where his character ended up going, and the implications this might have for the future of Asgard and his character, because the title, Thor Love and Thunder, there's more to it than you would think. And again, because Taika is such a brilliant writer, when you see why it is actually called Thor Love and Thunder. That Love and Thunder part might give you a little bit of a tear in your eye. Again, jumping into Taika Waititi, the amazing directing, great script that really tackles the meaning of life and death, and even our beliefs in a sense, and what we should believe in when it comes down to, you know, gods and everything of that nature. This is something that I was really impressed with in the way that he brought about the meaning to this world, and wrapping this around each and every character who is dealing with thematics like this. That is great because you're able to get a parallel even with Korg per se, who Korg is a funny character, but I feel in this film is very much written in a better manner. No, I have not forgotten to talk about Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie, who I think just continues to be a scene stealer, badass as all hell, and I love her in Thor Ragnarok. For me, she was my favorite part of that film, and I think she has a lot of moments to steal in here, especially her and her dynamic with Jane Foster. There's so much fun stuff within there. Speaking of, I keep mentioning the word badass, the action in here is stellar, and the way that Taika writes all the soundtrack within here is just great. I have so much fun with these action set pieces, and each and every one is very more memorable than the last, leading up to of course, the final showdown between Gor and the Thors and Valkyrie. That is a moment that, of course, we've seen glimpses of in the trailer, but it is really taken back in the way that they were able to create it in such a stylistic effort, and I loved that. The whole black and white scenarios, there's more to just that leading into the third act, and I can promise you right now, you are going to be like, this is freaking awesome, especially as it leads up and builds and builds and builds, because there is an entire set piece that was not shown in the trailers that just is freaking awesome. And it might not be for everyone because there's certain choices they make in there, but I really liked it. I love what they were able to do with that. And like I mentioned, the soundtrack just hits beautifully in each and every beat, and Giacchino's score, just magnificent. Like I mentioned, this film is not perfect, and I think there are some things that could have maybe made the film even better. So let's talk about those reasonings and one of the things that does hold the film back. And two of these things are more of expectations for certain people to expect in this film. One is the Guardians of the Galaxy are not in this film as much. What they're in it for, they're fun, they're energetic, and that's all really cool for me, and I can't wait to see what their next adventure is with James Gunn, but that's about it. Do not expect the Guardians in here all too much. They are probably in the film for less than 10 minutes, and I don't want people to be, why weren't the Guardians in it more? Those are your expectations, understand. As well, this film is not as funny as Thor Ragnarok. It does dive into more of the silly side of Thor Ragnarok when it comes down to the jokes, but it is not as funny as Thor Ragnarok, even though I do prefer the way that Taika wrote the humor and the poignant pieces in this film a little bit stronger, because I think it is absolutely better. We know Thor Ragnarok was more on the side of funny because they did a lot of improv. This film, you can totally tell, I feel like they leaned more into the script and the storytelling devices than Thor Ragnarok overall. But even though those two things didn't bother me, and I wanted to give you guys those expectations because some of those things might bother some of you, my only issue I do have with this film is I do find that it is absolutely rushed at specifically the start of the film, and I wish it would have taken a bit of its time to really bring us back into this world of Thor Love and Thunder and actually give a couple more development scenes between our main characters. Everything they do with Gor, as much as I just wanted to have more Gor, I thought everything in there was pretty well done. And same can go to be said about Natalie Portman's Mighty Thor and Tessa Thompson, but there just seems to be this urgency that rushes out in the beginning, and I wish they would have just taken their time a little bit slower with Thor and getting us back into where he is with his life. And it montages a little bit too much in the beginning of the film, but that's personally just me. I think this film could have had 10 to 15 more minutes of runtime, and it honestly would have been perfect. But besides that, just like a minor inconvenience for me, and some of you guys might not even notice that. I don't know what else to say now, but I just love Thor Love and Thunder, a heartfelt story that really makes you think about your meaning and what our point of our life should be. And Taika writes and directs one of my favorite MCU films yet. Gor is a terrifying villain, and Christian Bale really did that. He made me speechless. Every time he came on the screen, I just couldn't get enough of him. Natalie Portman is perfection as Mighty Thor, and the use of her was fantastic. You actually believe in Hemsworth and her chemistry, and speaking of Hemsworth, he is fantastic as well. Also, King Valkyrie, Tessa Thompson steals the show like no other. The action, the soundtrack, all those sorts of things are great. And while I wish the film was just 10 to 15 minutes more longer, it's because I just have such a blast with these characters. But the way that this film ends, it makes me so excited to see where the future of Asgard goes, as well as our characters that we've come to love. And, no pun intended, see the thunder in them. I can't wait to see your guys' reaction to this one. So with all that said, I'm going to give Thor Love and Thunder an A-. Let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are on the film. Are you guys excited for this one? Are you not? Let's talk about it down below. Look forward to those MCU rankings coming up pretty soon. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as head on over to Synopsis Films on how to see films early. And of course, guys, until next time, stay classy.